In this show, Apple's Mac notebook upgrade program, fixing Apple's Mac product names again, why external monitor color profiles change when you close your MacBook, and a book giveaway. Stay tuned. All sponsored by privateinternetaccess.com/iCaveDave for 4 months free with your subscription. Details later in the video. I'm iCaveDave and I simplify Apple so that everything just works for you, and if you want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours every weekday at 1300 UTC, like this video, subscribe to the channel and ring my bell. And that is 1300. That's important. We're pushing the show back for an hour permanently as of tomorrow. It gives YouTube a little bit longer to process the files, which have been a problem just recently, and it means more people can catch our live premiere chats and join in with the community, which is a good thing. So first up, finance group CIT has revealed that Apple is planning to announce a Mac notebook upgrade program, much like the one that already exists for the iPhone, starting at just $30 a month, presumably for Apple's MacBook Air M1, and with 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pros starting at $60 and $75 per month each, which represents 3% of the sticker price of each system. What's not clear is how quickly these updates are expected for the Macs, although I'm still pretty convinced we'll be getting annual updates. More on that in a little bit. With the iPhone upgrade program, the iPhone's cost is spread across 20 months, but it allows the iPhone to be traded in after 11 months and switched out for the new model. For this program, however, it seems that you're able to upgrade after having the machine for just 90 days if there's a new model released. Macs hold their value better than iPhones, of course, so it could well be that Apple is planning to refurbish and resell these Macs that are returned under the program. But that remains to be seen, as the machines are technically owned and purchased by CIT themselves, who may well have a favourable buyback program in place with Apple. And on to Apple's product names, the M1 Max. That's all that needs to be said here. I don't think anyone heard the names of Apple's new chips, which we'd all assumed would have been called the M1X, and thought, M1 Pro and M1 Max, nailed it. I've mentioned recently that I think Apple's best value lines should be labelled as SE models across the board too in a recent show, so we'll tie those in. Don't get me wrong, some of the names work really well. iPhones, for example, all pretty much make sense. iPad, as long as we change the base iPad to SE, I guess the rest of it kind of works too. And I think it's worth pointing out too that the name of the new MacBook Pro isn't MacBook Pro M1 Pro or MacBook Pro M1 Max, even though that's what we all think of it as. But that's just the detail to differentiate versus the old, basically obsolete Intel models. But we didn't generally call the last one the MacBook Pro Intel i7 6-core 2.6 GHz. We called it the MacBook Pro. Honestly, the best thing for almost all of Apple's product lines would be what cars already do, a model year. And then we would have the iPhone 2021, the MacBook Pro 2021, the MacBook Air 2020, and so on. And I get that so far this has been tricky with different product lines, occasionally getting 2 refreshes within the same year, but why was that? Well, we had mid-2011 MacBook Airs and late 2011 MacBook Airs because Apple was relying on the update and release cycles of CPU and GPU partners, Intel, Nvidia, and later AMD. Those problems with Apple Silicon are firmly in the past now. I don't expect that we'll ever see Apple using third-party GPUs, even for eGPU enclosures, not alongside Apple Silicon CPUs. Also, Apple's already designing their new cores every single year for the iPhone. The A-series chips haven't skipped a beat since the iPhone 4 and the original iPad in 2010, which both shipped with the Apple A4, their first custom-built processor. What's been less consistent has been their X-series chips, the A8X, the A9X, the A10X, the A12X, and the A14X, which is what was released as the M1. As you can see, these had annual releases when they were originally shipping, with the iPad Air 2 for the A8X, and then from the A9X in the iPad Pros. Apple skipped the A11 and A13 generations for X chips though, but at that time these chips were only going into a single device, the iPad Pro. From the A14 generation with the M1 label, the same SoC is now used in the iPad Pro, the MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, the MacBook Pro 13-inch and the 24-inch iMac. There's no reason with the volumes that Apple are producing on these chips now that they couldn't be getting annual updates. So that means that we can also have iMac 2021, MacBook Air 2021, iPad Pro 2021. I think that the MacBook Pro 13-inch with the base M-series chips will probably disappear in the next generation. Then you can simply have the Pro name mean that you have the higher-end chips in that device. Then we can simply have MacBook Pro in 14 and 16-inch, iMac Pro in 24 and 27-inch. Pro here won't mean larger, but the models that get the Pro chips. And you should be able to get both sizes with both chips. Mac Mini Pro, and let's just call the chip the M1 Pro. That's fine. or M1P if you like, and just add the number of GPU cores when you actually need them. And then the systems that we've not quite seen yet, the big ones, the iMac Pro Duo, the Mac Pro Duo, and the Mac Pro Quadra. Everything with just a product year and all the Macs of the same numbered processor, M1, M1 Pro, M1 Pro Duo, for example, all released during the same year. This would make loads of sense going forward if we do get the M2 in the spring that's coming in 2022. Then we could get our Pro chips and our Pro Duos, because it's basically two of the same thing, in September, October time, more than likely October. And then we've also got our next generation Apple chip coming out, which uses a different numbering system anyway, so that's all fine. Going forward, we would end up having 2 release cycles a year for Apple Silicon. We'd have our spring launch for the M1, M2, M3, M4s, and then we would have our October release for M1 Pro, M2 Pro, M3 Pro, M4 Pro, however many of those end up getting put in, and however many GPU cores they get added. This just makes a much easier cadence for people. The more efficient core systems will come out earlier in the year, ahead of time for schools doing procurement and for students going off to university in the summer. It gives enough time for those first purchases to be made before the big student promotions for back to school kick in during the summer. I would say though that we might not get Duo processors until the M2 shows up, but that's not so bad. Now, yesterday I asked you about the future of iCave Answers and how we should do it, and the consensus was we still want to have all of these questions answered on video, but not necessarily in the main show. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do one iCave Answers question in the main show each time, and where we've got enough questions to do a secondary show, that's what we're going to do, and there'll be one out later today. So the question that we're answering now is Greg West, iCave Answers. Hi Dave, I use a MacBook Pro with an external monitor. I've noticed that if I close the lid on the MacBook, going from dual screen to solely the external, there's an immediate colour shift in the external monitor. Isn't the colour profile of the monitor set within the computer and recognisable even with the lid closed? Okay, so I did a little bit of research into this, and there's 2 possibilities. If that external monitor is HDR enabled, it might well be taking data from the ambient light sensor in your MacBook, so it's working out how bright the display needs to be based on that. So if you turn off HDR for the external monitor in your display preferences, then that will fix that issue. However, of course, you then won't be using it in HDR mode. The other possibility is, do you have True Tone turned on? Again, the MacBook is basically getting its data from around your camera, so it's working out what your ambient light temperature is, and as soon as you close your MacBook, if it's going to a slightly more kind of blue hue perhaps, that would probably mean it is True Tone that's being switched off as the laptop is closed. Hopefully that helps you out. Let me know if that has solved your problem, and which one of those 2 it was if it did. Right, giveaway right after this message from our sponsor. Today's sponsor is Private Internet Access, the world's most transparent VPN provider, with over 30 million downloads. It's a simple to use VPN that works with your Mac, iPhone, iPad, and even those PC things and Android phones, routing all of your traffic through a secured tunnel to hide your IP address and keep what you're doing private. And let's be honest, if you're watching this video, you're probably using the devices you are because you value your privacy. Private Internet Access hides your network data from everyone, from your internet service provider or network administrator to government censors. And it's the most customizable on the market, letting you set custom rules for different websites and offering no bandwidth restrictions or speed throttling, so you can stream, upload, and download to your heart's content privately. And my favourite part is that it's 100% open source, so if you're one of those clever people who knows what you're actually looking at, it's easy to verify that everything is above board from the open GitHub repositories. No user data is stored, and PIA's no-log policy has been proven in court multiple times. So get your 3-year subscription with 4 extra months absolutely free for only $1.98 a month. That's 83% off only by visiting privateinternetaccess.com/iCaveDave, as this offer is exclusive for you guys and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. So why wait? Okay, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you will know that I am a big fan of Gary Vee, and I also work on his Facebook group, First in Line. If you're interested in any kind of entrepreneurship and you do your own business stuff, feel free to head over there and join in the conversations. It's really quite a productive group. But I've got some copies of this book, which is 12.5. This is Gary's new book. It came out in the last week or so. Certain areas of the world I don't think it's been released yet, but it comes out as an audiobook today as well. But yeah, if you want to get a copy of this, I've got some to give away. I'm happy to ship them basically anywhere in the world. If you want to win today's copy, what I would love you to do is head over to my Twitter. If you don't follow me already, follow me and tweet at me and at Gary V using the hashtag 12.5, and just put whatever message you want in there. But just make sure you tag me, icave_Dave, and at Gary V, and yeah, that would be great. And at the end of this week, I will choose somebody that's tweeted those two things to win a copy, and I'll DM you. So that's it for this show. Thank you to all my Patreons over there. These guys are awesome and help to keep this show going. And I'll see you later on with more iCave answers. We've got a whole bunch more to answer for you. And also, that's the one where we're going to do the silly questions, where it's nothing to do with Apple as well, and we just get to chat.